All right, the recording has started. Oh, you guys, I am so excited, you guys. It's week 2 of 6 weeks to success. And we have a guest speaker today. Her name is Amy. And Amy is also in the group that, remember at our team meeting, Becky was talking. And Amy is also in our mastermind group. Now, she started her business in February of 1999. And she used to work in the corporate world. That sounds familiar to a lot of people, I'm sure. And she had her first baby, but she wasn't thrilled. But she wasn't very thrilled about the lack of flexibility in that job. And they actually wanted to have baby number 2, and so she needed to have some more money. And financially, I guess with baby number 2 on the way, she wasn't going to be making that much money. I guess probably with paying for daycare. And she met a consultant, and the consultant did her party. And the consultant, I love this, you guys, because this is a huge lesson, asked her over 11 times to join Pampered Chef. And she kept saying, no way. And so finally one day she just called up the consultant and said, okay, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. Let's go for it. She always figured she could quit if she didn't work out for her. So she started very slowly. She only did 3 shows a month. She actually got pregnant the week that she signed up. So she was doing her grand opening shows and all her shows with morning sickness. Yeah. And she was also terrified to get up in front of everybody. I know some people, it's not an uncommon thing. And a few of her friends actually tried to talk her out of it. But her why was so huge. So in other words, her why was bigger than her butt. And so she wanted to stay home with her kids, and that actually helped her get through things. And so she quit her corporate job when she was seven months pregnant and never looked back. She actually earned her first trip, her first full year in Pampered Chef at 11:59 on the last day to earn it, 11:59 p.m. Wow. And when they announced Disney, she told her husband that if I did 6 shows a month all year, they'd earned the trip. And he was thrilled not to have to pay for it, so he told her to go for it. In fact, why don't she just add some more shows to her schedule? So with adding more shows, it meant more leads. She promoted to director, and ever since then, she's done a minimum of 6 to 8 cooking parties a month, 2 to 6 catalog/Facebook parties a month. She's earned, you guys get this, she's earned Disney 3 times. She's been on 2 cruises. She's been to Atlantis 2 times, San Diego, San Antonio, Maui, which, by the way, was my favorite trip, Miami, London, and she just got back from Mexico, and she was in the top 100 of earning the trips to Mexico. I know. She's earned excellence in sales for 14 years in a row, and she is currently, you guys, at $1,092,121 in sales. And her show average is around $1,000, so we have a lot to learn from her. And she generally averages 16 orders per party, which she directly attributes to her host coaching. She does the same work at each party regardless how many people are there, and she might as well make it sure it's well attended. So, Amy, we're so glad you're here. So, take it away.
Well, thank you for having me. This is kind of fun. Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk fast, kind of like I do at my parties, so hopefully this all makes sense. Are you recording, Wendy?
Yes, I am. Yes, ma'am.
You can go back and look at it. And I'm happy to answer questions or whatever, either later or whatever, when you can pass them on. But I want you to think about this, or actually shout it out. What things affect the sales of your parties? What things determine how high your party average is? What do you think?
Participation.
Okay, participation. What else?
Host enthusiasm.
Oh yeah, that's huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number of guests.
Number of guests. What else? Anything else? There's go ahead.
Outside orders.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, the demo matters. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about show averages and they say, I'm going to class on how to increase the show average, they always focus on what you do at the show, and they forget about what you do to prep for the show. And so often, a good business is the work that you do beforehand. All the prep work that you do beforehand lays the groundwork for a show that turns out amazing. And it really doesn't matter how great of a party you actually do if you don't have people there and if the host hasn't been working on orders, right? It doesn't matter what, you do. So, some of the reasons we host coach is we want to control our calendar, fewer cancellations, those are huge, right there. Because you already did all the work to get the shows. You want to keep them and you want to put them where you want them. Higher attendance, higher number of outside orders, which achieves a higher overall sales. And this goes for every type of show: cooking show, catalog show, fundraiser, Facebook party, bridal party. It doesn't matter. Host coaching goes for everything. Too often people just focus on the cooking shows and they forget about the other parties. And host coaching really has to go for every type of party. And really, if you're host coaching, you're basically ensuring that the host is talking to a lot of people. And let me tell you, they need to be encouraged. And one of my favorite stories is that, some woman at a party said, "Oh, I'd love to have a party." I said, "Great." And we were actually at the party face to face. And she looks me right in the eye and says, "Yeah, I'm going to invite my 3 neighbors." And that was it. That was all she was going to invite. And so very clearly, we cleared that up very, very quickly because that's not going to work. And the other little story is I really didn't do a ton of host coaching right away. Pampered Chef had given us a host information sheet back when I started, and I was sort of following it. And somebody always used to tell me, make sure you're asking the host how many people they're inviting. Now, these days, I'm actively involved with invitations, but back then I wasn't. And I was kind of afraid to, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe about 8-9 months. And I finally just blurted out to some woman, "How many people did you invite?" And she says, "Oh, I invited 17. And I'm like, "But I gave you 40 invitations." And so that was really kind of a turning point, because I talked to her and I said, "Only a third are going to come. What can you do to increase that list?" She's like, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." It never occurred to her to do that. That's my job. That's our job, to tell them to do these things. And it was so funny because she ended up inviting over 40 people and had 17 people at that party, and she signed. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't actually asked her how many people she was inviting and actively host coach. So one of the things that I look at, and I'm looking for numbers. How many of you know what this is? Anybody here know what this is? Hey, Wendy, it's the performance detail printed out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Zero to detail.
I know what it is.
It's hard to see.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So does everybody know where to find this? Okay. How many of you have looked at it in the last week? Okay. If you're not looking at it at least once a week, there's a concern, because this is where you see all of your detailed stats. And this is how I started to realize what I was doing right. I do a very decent show, but where I excel is pretty much in the average number of orders I'm getting per party. So this actually, and what I did is I purposely pulled December 2016. This, you can only see the current month and the previous month, and after that it dies off. So I print every single month. And then in January, all the numbers on here go to 0, except for career sales. So what I do is I want to be able to look at year to year to year, what am I doing? So I can see that my average number of orders per show were 15.9 for 2016. How many of you know what's your average number of orders per party? I know Wendy does. Okay, so if you don't know how many orders you're averaging, how do you know if you're improving? Okay, and this all comes down to host coaching. So I'm trying to give you some basis for understanding why I do what I do before I go into telling you what I do, because I think it'll make more sense. So what I find is when I have these discussions with my team members, that generally my team members are right about the company average, which I think is like 8.5 orders per party. And think about it, because they look at me and say, "Oh, well, let's see, last year in 2016, my sales average was $1,078 per party." And they look at that and they think, "Oh, well, we can't do that." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but you're getting 8 orders per party and you have a $600 party. If you have 16, you could potentially have a $1,200 party. And when they look at it that way, it's a very, very different thought process. It's not what I'm doing at the parties necessarily. It's what I'm doing on my phone and in texting and in emails before the party. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so now that you kind of have an idea of that, I would highly recommend that you make a reminder note to yourself that repeats every single month, and around the 7th or 8th of every single month, go and print your performance details. But in the meantime, at least go look at them right now, because you will see the current month, you'll see the past month, and then you'll also, there's a column for year to date. And one of the other things I do is, I do switch up my recipes. I didn't used to, I used to be real strict about month to month, but if I'm doing a recipe for an entire month and I'm noticing my average ticket has dropped, which basically means I do the math and I figure out this is my show average, this is my average number of orders per party. So in 2016, my average ticket was $67.80 per person. So I look at that month to month, and I know that if I've done a salad and sangria the entire month of March, and now my show average has dropped to 60, was there an extenuating circumstance that went for the whole month? Or is that a recipe that I should stop doing? Or I need to tweak because I'm not doing it good enough? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are all things that I look at. And honestly, I don't really think about them, I just do them. But did Wendy get all of you this?
Yes, you guys have posted it on the group. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is my Bible. Completely my Bible for all of my shows. I basically have it memorized. A version of this was given to us as new consultants when I started 18 years ago. About a year ago, I went in and gutted it and redid it for my team. You'll notice it has a when you date the party section. These are things I talk about. And really the only thing I care about at the beginning is we talk about inviting. That's it. We talk about inviting. We talk about inviting out of state. We talk about inviting local. We talk about how we're inviting, multiple ways of inviting. Do they all listen to me? Absolutely not. Do I have to repeat almost every single thing I say in this first section again? Absolutely. People have lives. They don't know this stuff. They don't remember this stuff, because the second you get off the phone with them, what are they doing? They're changing the load of laundry. They're answering the phone. The dog is barking. You know, the kid just made a mess on the floor. They don't remember. If you ever talk about adult education, in general, the estimate is within 2 days, someone only remembers 10% of what they were told. And if you spend 10 minutes talking to someone about how to have a good party, they're going to remember 1 minute of what you talked about. So in your first call, the only thing you should be talking about is inviting everyone who eats. If you look on here, there's actually a couple of different lines that I have highlighted. One of my favorite lines, actually, I don't know if this one is on here, but I talk about it all the time. Invite everyone who eats, invite everyone who eats. Everybody laughs, they giggle, they think it's funny. But it gets it through their head, because usually what are they focused on? They're gonna invite their best friend, their sister, their mom, and maybe one of the girls from work, and maybe a neighbor. But people these days, they don't know their neighbors. So the trick is I kind of change their thinking. I don't want them to be thinking close personal friends. I want them to be thinking the entire world. And inviting everyone who eats also includes men. So really just talking it up. And I repeat myself over and over and over again. Basically that first phone call, I'm saying the same thing 20 different ways. These days it can be difficult to get people on the phone. I do understand that. And I actually text them about that. I love texting with my hosts. Every host gets entered into my phone, so I know who's calling, or it's easy for me to text them. They text me, it works out great. Most of my hosts I'm friends with on Facebook, so we personal message in many cases. And sometimes I set up a coordinating Facebook party to go along with a home party. I don't think those work really great for home parties, although I do quite well with regular actual Facebook parties. But they're just one more way to communicate with people. So the trick is how many different ways can you communicate with people? So the other thing too is sometimes hosts are worried you're going to be that salesy person. You know, you kind of know what I mean. You don't want to be salesy. Do any of you watch the Tag Team Monday minivan?
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, you've seen it, Lisa, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Tag Team is great. They've got these awesome videos on Facebook, Monday minivan moments or something like that. And they've recently been doing the how to not be salesy videos. And I love them because this isn't all about the sales. I do not focus on the sales. My focus is, hey, tell everybody we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. What's our theme? And if they say to you, oh, I don't need a theme. Oh, yeah, we're having a theme. I don't care. We're having a theme. I will make a theme out of anything. I don't care what it is. I will make up a theme. It's going to have a theme. Somehow, way, shape, or form, we're going to make up some weird, bizarre name, and I really don't care. You know, I have a grilled nacho party. I have a margarita party. And I have a salsa and guac party. They are all the exact same recipes. Nothing changes, but it's just a different name. So it's all about making it sound fun. So it's all about the fun. We want to focus on the fun and the rest will fall into place. And I say those words to my hosts usually a couple of different times. And we want to focus on the fun. And you want to know what they say to me when I say that? They're like, oh, they just sound so relieved. You know, they're so happy. They're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, we're just focusing on the fun. Just tell people to come. Just tell them to come and eat. Come have a drink. Don't worry about it. And you will hear some debate on this, but I very bluntly and honestly don't care if people come and order or not. I had a time in my life where, you know, my husband lost a job and money was really tight. I just needed to get out of the house. And I got invited to a party and I got made to feel like crap because I didn't buy by the consultant. I got invited to another party and the consultant gave me all kinds of love. So who do you think I was going to deal with in the future? Okay, I booked a party with her because I had no money. Wanted nothing to do with the other one. So I don't care if people come and don't spend money, because here's the funny thing. Your host will be like, oh, you guys don't spend money, just come, just come, just come. And they come, and the funny thing is if they come, they usually order. Now, sometimes they don't, but that's okay, because now they know me. And oftentimes when they see me again, I'm the one that they're looking at. So I'm all about the fun. Everything is focused on the fun. And you know, some of the other highlighted words that I have in here, especially as we go into my primary host coaching call, I will tell them, I need to talk to you for 10 minutes, and I need to talk about 2 to 3 weeks before the party, and I need to talk to you for about 3 to 5 minutes a couple of days before the party. And that's it. I said, everything else can go via text, email, personal messaging, however you want to do it. They really appreciate that. I know some people are doing different types of host coaching. Personally, I feel like I catch a lot of problems this way. Versus sending a text or an audio. You have to do what's right for you and what works for you, but I do recommend trying to do the 1 10-minute phone call and then a day or two before, 2 to 3 minutes. Does it always work that way? Absolutely not. You've got to be flexible. But trying to do it this way as much as possible does really, really help. So a couple of different things I say to them, keep reminding your friends, because what they'll say to you, oh, I talked to her, she's coming. I'm like, yeah, you talked to her a week ago. Your party's not for another 10 days. They have lives. They're busy. They're going to forget. They don't remember your party because it's not important. You are, feel it's important, but they don't. So you want to make sure that you're constantly bringing it up. Basically, if your friends are not rolling their eyes at you, you have not talked it up enough. And it was so funny because we had a little talk about this with some of my team members a week ago. And I have 2 brand new team members who are recent hosts. And I said that, and they both looked at me and they're like, oh my gosh, she says that all the time. And I said, but it's true, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, it was true. It was totally true. So, these are little lines that I bring up that really, really help and they work. So I've got them in there, making sure, of course, that you're asking them, are you interested in this business? And doing it more than once. I was asked 11 times over a year. Seriously, 11 times. I'm $1 million seller. Do you think that my recruiter's happy? She asked. Actually, she's gone a long time. But, think about that. If she had stopped asking, I wouldn't have started thinking about this at all. So the trick is you want to ask multiple times. You'll notice that there's a point system on this host coaching sheet. There's a point for every activity you do. I challenge my team to mark their points, to fill out their points, because knowing how many points you're getting and then seeing what your sales end up is kind of a general indicator. Did you actually do a good job? I mean, you're going to see the good job with your sales, but, and you can also do an amazing show and have a bad host, so don't get me wrong. But if you're consistently filling out this sheet and you're constantly getting 10 points, my guess is your sales are going up and your recruiting is going up. There's also a little spot up here on the top, this blue line right here. And it asks, how many times have you asked your host to join? And every time I say something to my host, I circle it. So this one is for my host for Tuesday. She was an outside order who I was told to call because she wanted a party. And I do generally call my outside orders, but I was asked to do it before I got around to it. And so I asked her when we set up the party. I did her first host coaching call 2 weeks ago. I asked her then. And then when I reach out, actually I've already tried reaching out today. Hopefully she'll call me back. I'm going to ask her again. I'm going to ask her again at the party. Now here's the kicker. She's a Norwex consultant. I don't care. I ask. And do I tweak my language a little bit? Yeah. I do say, hey, you know, I know you're doing the Norwex thing, but, you know, had you ever thought about maybe something like this instead? Or, you know, where are you at? People do change their minds. People leave Pamper Chef all the time for their companies. Vice versa, it goes the same way. So always make sure you're asking. You never know what grabs someone's attention. And it's not like I'm looking to poach. I'm not into pressure. I'm not poaching. I'm just offering and then shutting up. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that also helps my recruiting a little bit. And then, I'm trying to think. There's another line underneath the primary host coaching section. I think it's like the 4th or 5th line down. It says, ask everybody which friend that they will bring. It doesn't say, tell your guests to bring a friend, because if someone told you, hey, you should bring a friend to my party, would you do it? And I say this to my hosts, and they all are like, oh, no, I wouldn't do it. So I actually say to my hosts, ask your friends who they are going to bring. Don't tell them to bring a friend. Ask them who they're going to bring. Because that makes people start to wonder, oh, I don't know, who should I bring? Okay, so there's just lots of little ways to really encourage the orders, constantly encouraging them to post on Facebook if they're on Facebook with the ordering link. How many of you guys are friends with hosts on Facebook and they post a comment about their party and then they don't put in the ordering link? I don't know about you, but I want to beat them over the head every single time I see this. All right. And generally what I do is I go into the comments and I post the ordering link. And the kicker is I've already told them like 10 times you have to post the ordering link, and they don't do it. So I watch for that, and then I go in and post it if I can. Let's see, you know, just working on making sure they're talking it up like crazy. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Those, you know, it really comes down to how much is the host talking about the party. And I just tell them that over and over and over again. So questions, comments, thoughts?
Anybody have any questions for Amy about host coaching?
No, I think this form is great.
Isn't this a great form?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I absolutely love your point system here.
That's not mine. I don't know who did it. I heard it might have been Marna Ross, but I don't know.
Probably. And I love the fact that, you know, your goal is to try and get 10 points on here and then relate it to how big your party is. Because, I mean, I think, Amy, I agree with you 100%. It's all about host coaching. And, you know, Amy and I have been in this business long enough to know that when we show up to a party and there are like 3 people in the room, 9 times out of 10, if we didn't know that there were only going to be 3 people ahead of time, it's something we've done. It's that we haven't kept in communication with our host or any, you know, or if the show cancels. I mean, sometimes it's unforeseeable that it has to cancel, but other times, you know, I can tell a lot of times whether I'm doing a great job at host coaching or whether I'm doing a terrible job at host coaching.
You know, and if you're not sending out your invitations in some way, shape, or form, I do recommend it. I like using Margo, but whether you're, you know, sending out paper invitations, whether you're focusing on electronic version, and honestly, even in Margo, which is an inviting system, I tell my hosts I really don't even want paper or snail mail addresses. I just want emails and texting. And that has been my primary focus for invitations for about the last year, and it's really working quite a bit. And just constantly telling them, you know, everybody, do you have friends in Florida? Do you have an auntie that lives in Texas? Do you have a cousin that lives out of state? Do you know, were you in a sorority? I had one woman invite her all of her 60 of her sorority sisters. So she had almost a $3,000 party. She had orders from all over the country. And that was before Facebook. So she was just emailing people. So really it just comes down to who are you talking to, how much are you talking about it as a host, and then just making sure you're following through. Nancy Jo Ryan, who's an executive director, has a really great line. She says, you determine the size of your paycheck before you even walk in the door based on your host coaching, and the show is just where you pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that is 100% true. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your host form, you have a line going through the all orders direct ship immediately stuff. Is that just because because you're not on direct ship now, or is it because
My team is not on direct ship.
Right.
So this is for me. I have this memorized. I don't need this. Although this is the sheet of paper that I fill out during the third call, because at this point I do have it all memorized. I don't need the reference. When I was new, when I dated a party, I filled this out and then religiously checked everything off. Please make sure you're doing that for every single party from the time you date it. But I didn't want to confuse my team. So that's why that's crossed off.
Okay.
And maybe it'll be here in a year. I don't know. We'll see. Then we can take that off.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, you guys?
No, not for me.
Okay. Okay.
All right, girls.
Hey, Amy, thank you so
Thank you, Amy.
much. This is awesome. Okay, so what's going to happen, you guys, I will post the homework for this week. It'll, of course, obviously be related to host coaching. So I'll post the homework on our Facebook 6 Weeks to Success team page. And then I know all of us, I know I have a coaching call set up with every one of you, so that is great. So look for that. And Amy, once again, thank you so much for being our guest speaker. I really appreciate that. And I just love this point.
Thank you.
Guys, good luck with all your work.
All right.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. You guys
Good
have
night.